So one of the other things that FDR did was create the Wagner Act, and that made it legal to have collective bargaining and closed shops. The Wagner Act made it so that some companies or factories or shops, as they called them, were only union workers could work there. So it was a victory for unions at that time. He also set up a board of sort of an executive board to enforce those rules. And eventually, FDR would make a national law that banned child labor and created a minimum wage. So he was a hero to the working class at that time. Again, a lot of people thought all these rules and regulations were an overreach of the government, but for most Americans, FDR was wildly popular. Next slide. Now, the most important thing he did that is still with us today is the Social Security system. Social Security supplies 3 different insurances that are from the government. The first type of insurance that it gives you is old age pension and survivor's benefits if your spouse has died. And those, you begin to get those payments after the age of 65. So it's like life. It's like an insurance policy that you pay into your whole life. They take money out of your check, and you begin to get that money back when you turn 65. Second is unemployment insurance. Social Security. Employers who have more than 8 employees pay a tax. The government uses that tax to help pay for unemployment benefit for people who are out of work. And you usually, but not always, you usually have to show some sort of good faith measure that you're trying to get work. And the third type of Social Security is for dependent children, the blind, and the disabled. And these were given to states to disburse however they wanted to. These were called grants. Now, these are all 3 very important, and you'll need to know all 3 for the assessment. But right now, we are moving on to the next slide. So if you need to pause this to write. There were limits to what the New Deal could do. Women did not get a lot of help from the New Deal. The workforce was mostly made up of men, so women got very few programs that helped them. The other group is African Americans. African Americans in the North did get some help from the New Deal, but in the South, New Deal programs, the money was given to local governments to disperse to job programs, and those local governments in the South very often discriminated against African Americans. So, and it did happen in the North. It was more prevalent in the South, but it happened in the North and the South. Because remember, this country was not all holding hands and looking at rainbows. This country was a country of discrimination at that time. The national anti-lynching law did not get passed, even though it was pushed by the Roosevelt administration. Both Republicans and Democrats in the South opposed it. However, because of the empathy that Roosevelt showed, and because his wife was not afraid to sit with African Americans, and he was not afraid to shake hands and have his picture taken with African Americans, they loved, by and large, Roosevelt. This is the era where African Americans who had traditionally been Republicans, because that was the party of Abraham Lincoln, switched parties and began to be Democrats, and they have mostly been in the Democratic category ever since Roosevelt. The New Deal did do some programs, but not a whole lot for African Americans. Moving on to the next slide. After I say Roosevelt's appeared to care for African Americans, now moving on to the next slide. The criticism came from a few different areas. Many thought the New Deal went too far, gave too much power to the government. The main organization that opposed the New Deal was called the American Liberty League. The rich, of course, didn't like him because he raised taxes on the rich. A lot of people saw the New Deal as a first step towards communism, because in a communist government, in a communist system, the government controls everything. And many also thought that the New Deal did not go far enough. That was another criticism. You've done a lot, but you could do more. But look at Roosevelt. He could care less what people thought. He was insanely popular and was reelected by a wide majority 4 times, or 3 times. Elected once and reelected 3 times.